Good evening, everyone. I am looking to see if I am live in the group real quick here. And I see myself. Wonderful. So I'm going to pull that up here on my phone so I have access to comments if anybody does join live. And welcome back to day 2 of our 2-week series, which we are spreading out 6 days total, spreading out over 2 weeks. And we are diving into building emotional resiliency in postpartum. And we're talking about the 6 losses of postpartum. That is a very normal experience for those folks who go through this huge transformation in our lives. And this is the case for normal experiences and also for ones that carry trauma in their stories as well. And so it's really one of those things that we see along a spectrum, like so many things in the postpartum time frame. And yesterday was day 1. It was our kickoff day, and we dove into the loss of self. And if you didn't get a chance to watch that video, please go back and take a look. It's definitely worth the watch. We dove into some of the more common experiences when it comes to this sense of loss that we can feel post-baby. And really this shift in our identity, where we're trying to kind of bring together who we were before we had our baby and who we are after. And this is the case no matter how many times we have gone through the postpartum experience through birth, no matter how many children we've had, we always experience this certain shift in how we view ourselves and how we relate to our community and in so many other ways. And so we dove into that yesterday, and I gave one of my favorite impactful tips when it comes to kind of navigating this sense of loss. So definitely go back and check that out. Tonight, for day 2, we are going to be diving into the loss of voice. And I mentioned in day 1 how all of these losses are very intertwined. They're very connected. And often when I'm speaking to birth givers in the postpartum time frame, they'll say that they've experienced all of these or at least more than one of these types of losses. And a lot of times they complement one another, or like I said, they're connected. And so we're going to see some of that tonight when we talk about this loss of voice and how that kind of falls back to this loss of self, this sense of self and this shift in identity. For those of you who are joining for the first time, my name is Jessie Sletton, and I am a postpartum empowerment coach. And I work with folks in pregnancy and in postpartum to really help them exchange this concept of surviving their postpartum for really thriving in it after birth. And I do this by working with my clients one-on-one individually on recovery and support plans. We really dive deep into a lot of this emotional work that we're talking about in this series, and we figure out plans to put into place to make sure that you are feeling seen, heard, and in control, which you're going to hear a lot of these 3 themes in what we're talking about tonight. And so I really meet my clients where they are in their journey. And I'm also a certified lactation counselor and a certified postpartum nutrition coach. So I really have a holistic approach to support during the postpartum time frame. So I help my clients with infant feeding goals, and of course support if there's bumps in the road when baby gets here. We work together on how to navigate that and try to meet those goals that my parents have for themselves and their family. And then I am so big on postpartum nutrition because I really believe that that is the foundation for our health, our physical, mental, spiritual health, all of the things, emotional. It's all tied to how we are fueling and nourishing our body, especially after the trauma of birth. And this, our body views birth as a trauma, even if we have a routine birth that goes smoothly. And so this is really amplified the more interventions, the more struggles we had during birth and during the healing time in postpartum. And so I work with my clients on all three of those areas where I do the support planning, we do the nutrition, and of course the infant feeding goals. So this is something that you are looking for to really be witnessed in your journey post baby and even for planning for your fourth trimester in pregnancy. I love when I get to work with my folks in pregnancy because we really can get this hammered out when the emotions aren't so heightened and we're not in that survivor mode already. But I do want to reassure you that if you are, it's never too late to reach out for help. So I included my link in the description for scheduling a free call with me. It's 45 minutes where we sit down and we strategize about where you are in your journey and kind of the services that I offer. I go more in depth about how that looks, and we can talk together about what that would look like for supporting you through your journey. But tonight is going to be all about focusing on this loss of voice, but really flipping that on its head and talking about the strength and the resiliency that we can see in this postpartum timeframe when it comes to feeling like our voice is not heard, and some of the steps that we can take to help mitigate that loss. So let's dive in and kind of talk about how this sense of loss can really be felt in the postpartum timeframe. And before I move on, I do want to say, if you are with me live, say hello. Let me know where you're coming in from. I'd love to hear if some of the stuff we're talking about resonates with your experience that you've had, whether it's current or past postpartum experiences. I'd love to hear your journey. And this is going to become pretty important as I talk about the resiliency piece later on and this ability to share our voice in spaces that are safe. And I just want to say that this is one of those spaces, if that's something that you feel called to share. So some of the ways we can experience this loss of voice in the postpartum time frame can be literal, and it can also be more of this figurative feeling. And when the literal side comes into play, we are so busy in the postpartum time frame, right? We are 24/7 just in it. And it's so true, especially now during this time that we are living in with this pandemic, right? A lot of us are spending much more time home. And we're going to talk a lot more about this when we're talking about our loss of community and loss of world later on in this series. But the loss of voice plays into this piece too, because we really just don't have the opportunity to speak to other adults as often as we did prior to our birth, right? For those of us who are in the workforce and, we're on our maternity leave, if we're blessed to have some time for that, it's a huge shock for us to be able to go from being working full-time or part-time and having this adult interaction and being able to have these higher level conversations to being at home. And whether or not we have our partner there, we're really just in this pattern of speaking to our little one, right? And they're, as much as they are adorable and their little bubbly sounds and stuff, that they're not very good conversers, right? We're not getting that opportunity to talk about how we are experiencing this time in our life. And so we can really have that experience of this loss of voice, literally, with not being able to use our voice as much as we would like, and to be able to talk about how we're feeling and the experiences we are having, right? And then there's this side that's more of this kind of not figurative, but it's a more of an abstract concept of loss of voice, where when we do have the opportunity to share about our experiences or talk about our birth or be able to say how we are feeling in this moment and even talk about this sense of shifting identity and our needs and how we as individuals are feeling during this really, transformative time, is sometimes it's often met from the other side, the person that we're speaking to, with kind of this unsupportive reaction, right? And so then our voice kind of gets shut down, or we no longer feel safe to share how we are feeling. And so sometimes this happens too, and we experience this loss of voice. And sometimes I hear a lot when talking with postpartum folks is, I'll try to share about how I'm feeling. I'm feeling really stressed. I'm overwhelmed. I'm exhausted. I just, want to vent for a minute to somebody who gets it or somebody who's willing to listen, right? And then when I think I have that person and I talk to them about it, or it's family or whatever that might look like, I met with, well, what did you expect? You have a newborn baby, or just wait until, and then they give me this other scenario that's going to be worse than the scenario I'm in right now. Or sometimes we hear, well, at least. I talked about this yesterday a little bit. We get met with this, the intention maybe good from this person on the other side who is trying to maybe offer some comfort in the way that they think is going to be helpful, where they have this sympathy. But when we're really looking for empathy, and we're met with this, at least the baby is healthy. At least you had an easy birth. Focus on the happy stuff. Focus on the good things. And so the voice that we're trying to share, our experiences that we're trying to share, it really gets invalidated, right? And we feel like, oh, okay, so maybe the things that I'm experiencing isn't worth speaking about, or I need to just toughen up and, do it all. I need to be able to handle it all. At least I'm healthy. At least the baby is healthy, right? And this can be especially difficult just for, kind of the quote unquote normal experience of birth and postpartum. But when we're adding on a layer of birth trauma or trauma that's occurred post-delivery, it can be even more devastating and isolating to not be able to share about that experience. And we really feel that sense of loss. And it bleeds so much into these other areas that we're going to touch into later as well, with this loss of community, loss of world, loss of control, right? And so that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying that sometimes we experience this loss of voice, where either we can't utilize our voice because of the actual busyness of the postpartum time frame and just the lack of adult conversation that's really meaningful, right? And then on the other side of that, we have when we do reach that place of vulnerability and to get the courage to share our feelings and our experiences and how this time is going for us, we are often met with this dismissal or this shutting down of our experience or invalidating that experience. And that can be really, really difficult. I'd love to hear from anybody who's either watching this live with me or for those who are catching the replay, if this is something that you have experienced, and which of those two, or maybe both of those type of scenarios of this loss of voice really resonated with you in your experience. I'd love for us to be able to share in this space. And this segues really nicely into one of my biggest tips to be able to really navigate this experience with a little bit more resiliency and to have this not impact us as deeply. And that's really like understanding your support system and knowing where you can feel safe with sharing these stories. Because the more we can speak about our experiences, our birth stories, our postpartum experiences, how we are adjusting to this new role, this new life, all of those things. The more that we can share about that and have our experiences validated, the more we can feel witnessed and the more we can feel held in our experiences. And we're able to really be at peace with that and be able to move through that and have that source of validation that's so important for our experiences. And so that's the biggest thing that I wanted to share with you all, with trying to ensure that you have that place where your story will be held and you feel safe sharing that, and you know that you will have that just really active listening, and maybe somebody who you know isn't going to try to jump in and problem solve right away, right? Because sometimes that's not what we're looking for. Sometimes we're just looking for, I get it. That sounds really hard. That sounds really hard. And just to be seen and heard, right? And something that I often hear from people who schedule time with me and who want to work together one-on-one through my coaching program is that they just don't have that village. They don't have that source where they know they can have that kind of support that is so needed. And that's really where I come in, right? That's exactly what I do. And that's exactly what my role is in supporting you through postpartum, is hearing your experiences, witnessing what you're going through, holding that space for you to just be and to be able to be seen and heard, and holding that space for you. And so if this is something that you know that you're going to be struggling with as far as finding that safety and that supportive place where your voice can be heard and where you can share your stories, I really encourage you to schedule some time with me, because I want to be able to be there for you, to support you through this. And there's so much more that goes into working together too. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to really allowing that space for your voice. So some of the support planning that I like to do with my clients when it comes to this emotional support planning, which is often so overlooked. If we even think about planning for our postpartum, which often doesn't even enter our mind anyway, we often focus on the tactical stuff, right? How am I going to feed baby? What formulas do I want to use if that's something I'm going to look into? What bottles? What pump should I try to get if I'm thinking about pumping and I'm going to be, chest or breastfeeding? When will I go back to work? All of these tactile things that are actionable, right? And while those are extremely important and they are a part of the planning that I do with my clients, the things that we don't often think about are these soul care pieces, these emotional well-being pieces that are honestly the most impactful on our experiences in postpartum. If you really think about it, let's say you're pregnant currently and you've had a child in the past, you've gone through a postpartum experience, how much of that, if you had a difficult experience, was the actual emotional side of it? For me, when I answer that question, it's almost 100%. I had a really big hard time with my my nursing, my breastfeeding journey, and that played a big part of it, for sure. But it was the emotional side of that experience that was so difficult for me. And it really bled into my mental health, my physical well-being, all of these things, right? And I had a very supportive family, very supportive partner. But no one really knows how to support in the right way, because we're just not taught that way in our society. Our society does not focus on that. It's really ingrained in us to bounce back, right? Right after birth. Oh, you should be able to handle it all. with a Instagram perfect house on top of it, right? And so it's really difficult to find that because it's just not normalized in our society. So with that, I don't think I have anybody on with me live. I had a few people and then I saw that they had to hop off. So I'm hoping that you all catch the replay here because it's super important that we are talking about these things. I want to hear about your experiences below. Share that with us if you feel called to do so, if you feel I want this to be a safe space where we can allow that voice to come out and we can talk about those experiences and really feel like we're not so alone too, which is another really big one. All right, everyone. So with that, I am going to call it a night tonight. Be back here tomorrow for the same time, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Wednesday, we're going to be talking about the third loss, which is going to be the loss of community. And this one's really big and ties in again directly into what we've talked about with the loss of self, loss of voice. And we're just going to keep going through these and really talking about the importance of them and how we can better prepare ourselves to move through this time with grace, with a lot of support, and where we don't feel so out of control and overwhelmed, where we can take back that control, which is going to be another one that we talk about. It's a huge one, the loss of control in the postpartum time frame, and we're going to talk about that as well in the coming week. So tomorrow will be the last day this week for this series. We're going to take a break for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we're going to be back again next Monday. I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to catch up on the videos, to invite their family and friends for those who think that this would benefit anybody that you know who is currently expecting or postpartum. And to really just give you that chance to decompress, because this is kind of some heavy stuff that we're talking about sometimes. But I really want us to focus on the strength and the resiliency side of it as well, because there is so much hope. There is so much hope in the postpartum time frame for us to reclaim that and be able to thrive in postpartum, even when there's difficult situations, even when there might be some trauma that we're carrying with us into postpartum. There is this hope and this sense of resiliency, especially with the right support. All right, everybody, I hope you have a great evening. Let me know below what you're thinking so far of the series, what resonated with you the most, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Bye.